got a guy
What a
like that that's built
shot.
like that, the 6'4", that you got to translate like that.
They got Jordan Davis last season. They bring Fletcher Cox back in Philly. So I'm sitting there like, we need to put something on this offensive line to combat that. Welcome back, everybody. Today we will be hitting you with the AFC West. Off the top, AFC winner, in my view, is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I said it last year. I said it this year. They're the top dogs till they're not in that division. They did lose a couple key pieces: Frank Clark, Orlando Brown, and an Eric Bieniemy. And I do think those are significant losses for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean Frank Clark in general, I kind of thought they would hang on to him, but I think it says a lot about them and the direction they're going. You paying for your blue chip players right now, so you got your Mahomes on the contract, your Kelsey, and obviously they just redid a deal with Chris Jones, and you can't keep them all, man. So I think it's players like George Karlaftis that they kind of expect to just kind of come into their role and be able to just take that leap going into year two. As far as Eric Bieniemy, this is one of the most polarizing things, man. We always wonder, like, why wasn't he getting those head coaching jobs? What was it? Was he a bad interviewer? Is he just not a good coach? And um, it's crazy because out goes Eric Bieniemy, and then obviously Matt Nagy. He had his little short stint. Now he's back. Obviously, he was the quarterback coach, and now he's back into his previous role. So I don't know if it says a lot about that loss in general, or is it just Andy Reid, you know what I mean, being the guy behind the scenes, just kind of keeping everything together as it is, man. So definitely it's a big loss, but I think long as they got their main core, who we kidding, man? The Chiefs gonna be right back in the mix of things. Best team in the AFC until proven otherwise.
No, and you mentioned the blue chips over in Kansas City. They've got quite a few, and of course, you can only keep what you can afford. The loss of Bieniemy is weird to me because people are so on opposite sides with him, and you don't really know, like, are they losing something there, or is that a good thing? I think it's probably a good thing for Washington, but they've got a Chris Jones over there, Creed Humphrey, I think is one of the best centers in the league, and Nick Bolton as well. The running back room is a little confusing to me now because you've got Isaiah Pacheco clearly taking the early down work. You've got McKinnon as the scat back, and your former first round pick CEH, like, he's just kind of out in no man's land. So that's a weird one there. Talk to me a bit about how you feel about that running back room.
Nah, man, I love Isaiah Pacheco, man. We seen him just come into his own. Kind of just right before our eyes in the playoffs, man. He was a beast, and I think they expect, him to just do big things, hitting the year two. You heard it all last year, like all through the off season, like they love this guy, then they kind of eased him in, and it seemed like when they took the trainer wheels off, man, he was a beast, man. I think he was a huge, contributor to them even getting that Super Bowl, if you want to be honest. And then McKinnon as well, man. We seen him just kind of find his role and just be that dual threat guy that actually, towards the end of the year, man, they leaned on time and time and time again, man. So I like the running back room. I like what they got going on. Clyde was hilarious. I mean, hey, man, look, the best players will play, and unfortunately, like, he hasn't been that guy. So just maybe he's able to rekindle that. Maybe he's be a camp body. We don't know. But I think as far as like the first two guys, I like what they got going on. I like Pacheco. I think like I stated before, I think he's a beast. McKinnon as well, man. So the running back room is set. The receivers, man, I think that's exciting in itself, man. You got a lot of guys that has a lot of potential, but they're quite not there yet. You know what I mean? I like Scott Moore. I loved him coming out. Justin Ross, we all know about him. Valdez Scanlon, he just a deep threat, just always making plays, this, that, and the third. And Kadarius Toney is I think the most talked about guy right now. That I think you hear Mahomes talk and you hear how they feel about him over there in Kansas City. They think he has the chance to be one of the best playmakers in the league. So as long as they have these guys that can complement Travis Kelce, who that's de facto number one. Whether anybody want to say it or not, wide receiver one, high, tight end, it doesn't matter position. This is target guy number one. And as long as these guys just complement that, they're gonna be there, man. As long as you got Mahomes anyway. And Mahomes and that Andy Reid duo, man, look, that's enough. That's enough.
Speaking of duos, the Chargers got a duo with Brandon Staley and Justin Herbert over there on the West Coast. And to me, this is the second best team in the division. On paper, their roster is stout. I do think they need more out of a Khalil Mack this season, and they need their key guys to stay healthy because they got pieces over there. They just can't seem to keep them on the field.
Yeah, for sure, man. The injury bug hit him hard last year, and to some of the most important players, like you talked about Khalil Mack, he was in out the lineup. Bosa, man, another guy who hasn't been able to stay on the field, and then to lose Slater, one of the highest potential guys, your left tackle, and they still was like there, but it wasn't enough. And it's weird, you get Kellen Moore in here, and that's kind of what I want to ask you. You get a guy in there like that, like what can he do for this team? Like they already was the third overall passing offense in the league, ninth total offense. So I mean, what can he do, and what do you expect him to bring to this team? Like what type of dynamic to it?
I think the Chargers are definitely in the discussion for the number one offense in the league, man. They kept Austin Eckler. The deal's a little weird, but if you can keep Mike Williams healthy, Kellen likes to throw the ball downfield. This is going to be Mike Williams' season, bro. Keenan Allen, he's your underneath guy, and then Quentin Johnston, like hopefully he can carve out a role. So I mean, I think you're looking at 35 points a game. I mean, even the best defenses will have a hard time keeping that down pack. And I hope we finally get to see that emergence of Justin Herbert as well.
I mean, has he arrived? You know, I think talent wise, we already a lot of people already put him up there. I mean, obviously he need the wins and the kind of like the accomplishments to back that up. But I mean, as far as talent goes, man, Herbert is a beast. With Kellen Moore, I got some questions about him, but I think that kind of correlates to how I felt about Staley in general as well, man. You think back to him, and he was able to lead them back to the playoffs. I mean, they've been out of the playoffs since 2018. You think how his first year turned out. We all remember the infamous game. It was the win, lose, the tie game going against the Raiders. He called that timeout, helped them get in the field goal position, and didn't really seem like he was going for the win at that time, and we all know what happened. Raiders was able to get to the playoffs. Then you think back to last year. I would say like maybe one of the biggest meltdowns I ever seen, and I ain't even gonna say maybe. Definitely, when you think about the magnitude of it, 27-point lead, and to see the Jaguars come back from that. A lot of people was high on them, like has Jacksonville arrived? Was it Trevor Lawrence? And I just think it overshadowed really what happened. And I think it was the coaching staff, man, just mismanaging the game, allowing that team to get back in the game. So I think Staley, man, another year, I think he just needs some experience on the belt. Hopefully he turns it around. But then you think about Kellen Moore, he has all the stats, and they're kind of similar in the sense of not managing. I think that falls more on the head coach when you think about McCarthy and things like that. But I think like game by game, drive by drive, helping your quarterback out. If your running back's hot, sticking to it. I think he just kind of went into this thing like I have my game plan and I'm sticking to it no matter what happens. And we kind of seen that when Paulo went out in the playoff game, he kind of had no answer. It just seemed like he was just sticking to the script. So hopefully he learns from that. But I think potential wise, we all know Kellen Moore has one of the brightest minds offensively out there right now.
No, and for me, with Brandon Staley, it's crazy because if they would have gotten the blowout against Jacksonville, the conversation with Staley would be so different today.
Absolutely.
But when you're a defensive head coach and you give up that many points on defense, then we got some major red flags when we already had them already. If this season plays out and the defense does not improve, but the offense can stay the same and Kellen can do his thing, then absolutely he's going to take the throne over at in Los Angeles this season.
We'll see, man. We'll see. But definitely a good team on paper. They stack. They got all the pieces. So if there's any team that can kind of overtake Kansas City, I foresee it being the Chargers. They got it. And I think, Justin Herbert, I think he's arrived already, but I think there's a new level he can get to, and we'll see if Kellen Moore can help him get there for sure.
I think last thing there that Staley's had a bit of a pass due to the injuries that have taken place, but his game management I think has just outshadowed that like tremendously. So he is on a very short leash to me this season. Moving on to Denver, we got Sean Payton coming in the building and taking over where Nathaniel Hackett was. Do you changing the towels and everything over there? Do you think that maybe what happened last year with Russell Wilson was a fluke and that Sean Payton can get him where we once saw him? Or do you think that we have seen the best of Russell Wilson?
Oh, I do think it was a fluke, man. It's crazy because obviously, the NFL is what have you done for me lately type league, and we see it all the time, man. And I think, for a lot of people, you see it, you see the rankings come out to see like Russell Wilson no longer even be viewed as a top 10 guy. Just 1 year later, a lot of guys go through these years, but who really deserves to share the blame, man? You think about it. I think you do give Russell Wilson some blame, but I don't think his head coach did anything to help him out in those situations. He didn't really give him a chance. What would they say? Let rest cook. But it's time when your guy not cooking, you gotta kind of you got to kind of be that presence to be able to lean on him. Even though he's a veteran guy, you got to help him. You know what I mean? Lean on the run game a little bit. The defense was as solid as they was, and just to see them falter so many times and times and times again, I just think at some point you got to pull the plug a little bit and say, Russell Wilson, how do I settle you down? How do we got to shorten the drops a little bit? How can we make it easier for a guy like that? And I don't think Hackett did so, which obviously you see him get cut mid-season, get out the door. And I think Russell Wilson played actually a little bit better after that. Obviously, it was too late, wasn't enough. But I think, as a team, that defense is still crazy. You know what I mean? It's a nice roster. We all know, like, when they got Russell Wilson, we looked at the team and said, hey, man, look, the defense look good. They got some young weapons. They got Javonte Williams. The run game looks good. All they need is a quarterback to compete. And to see them get that and not be able to compete, I just think was crazy, man. Just goes to show you, like, you can put it all together on paper, but it's intangibles and other things to go into that. You know what I mean? Obviously, coach quarterback relationship, however you want to play that, but it didn't work in year one. And I think Sean Payton is the perfect guy to come in there and get this offense going.
I think one thing too with between Denver and the Chargers, like clearly there's a gap with the Chiefs and everyone else, but I just can't tell how big the gap is between the Chargers and the my bad, the Broncos. You got Russ in there with, as you mentioned, a Cortland Sutton, a Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams coming off of an ACL. But you do bring in a Samaje Perine, who is a good running back. You brought in some help on the offensive line. And to me, when I look around that team, I don't really know who the blue chips are. I know the only one I can truly say I think is a blue chip that has proved it would be Patrick Surtain. I think Simmons is a close second, but I don't know. I don't. There's like a lack of talent there, but the defense is still lights out.
Oh, the defense lit, man. And they carried their own for so much the year. I mean, that year last year, obviously, but it wasn't enough, man. And if I was to just give you some stats, man, when I give you these stats to think about it, just to break it down in general, like generally, if your defense is holding opposing teams to under 20 points a game, I think you should expect to win those games, right? And for most people, it means your defense did your part. All I needed to do is just have my offense put some points on the board. So you had, I believe it was 6 games last year, right? So this defense held these teams under 20 points per game, and they still was not able to pull it out in the win column, man. So 17 points allowed against Seattle. That's
Mm.
an L. 12 points against the Colts. 12 points. That's crazy. That's an L. 19 points against the Chargers. 16 points against the Jets. 17 points against the Titans that resulted in an L as well. And another game, which 10 points against the Baltimore Ravens, they was not able to win those games, man. And you mean to tell me Sean Payton can't come in here and uplift this team and, you know what I mean, get them over? Like, come on, man. That's crazy. And I think he would do that for this team. It goes to show you, you know what I mean? All you needed was a little bit, you know what I mean, more from that offense. And, 6 games right there, we may be singing a different tune. This might just be a playoff team, you know what I mean? But they have the potential. But yeah, let's put it on Russell Wilson and see what type of magic that him and Sean Payton can create in year one.
That's a crazy stat there, man. And it's crazy because when we talked about Minnesota the other day, they were on the other end of those close games.
Right.
And the conversation we would be having today with the Broncos would be so different right now if it would have went that way. Um, I do have some questions though about Jerry Jeudy, man. Like coming into what is this year 4 now, and we haven't really seen the flash. Like CD Lamb finally kind of showed us last year in year 3 what it was. Jefferson's been doing his thing, but talk to me a bit about how you feel about Jerry Jeudy and where he's at this season.
I mean, Judy, I think, route running, it depends how you want to break it down. I think let's just say talent wise, obviously, he has the talent. He hasn't had the most success with just staying on the field, being healthy like that. But I think, what I mean, we all expected him to kind of grow into that role and be a number one right now. And I don't really know if he's been a number one, and can he do it this year? He has the quarterback. At least he has Sean Payton in that room, but I don't think he's done enough to say, I guess in your terms, be a blue chip player right now. He's not that guy right now. Is he top 10 right now? Not close. Top 20, debatable. You know what I'm saying? And
Sure.
and if I'm drafting a guy top 20 in the NFL draft, I think by year 3, year 4, you expect that guy to be kind of bring on the brink of being one of those guys. And I don't really feel comfortable with saying he is that. But I mean, it changes. You see, it changes all the time. I think he could be that guy. Like I said, he has the talent. He's still one of the best route runners in the league today. You know what I mean? So not there yet, but can he get there for sure?
Speaking of the best route runners in the league, let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, man, are a bit of a mess. I think are teetering the line of a rebuild, and they're stuck with Josh McDaniels. Can he survive the season? I think he will. I think he has to. But I think the Raiders, man, are a total mess right now. Jimmy G, the foot thing, who really knows what's going on with that? Jacobs doesn't sign his franchise tag. Is he going to show up? I bet he does. But that it's kind of a mess over there. And talking blue chips, man, outside of Max Crosby and a Colton Miller, I don't know who I could call a blue chip given the situation with Josh Jacobs and Adams' frustrations publicly.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot of holes, man, a lot of holes. And I just think, in I guess you could say before last year, I think they kind of misjudged how close they were. And they all it's cause cliche, they always say you're never one player away. The teams that always feel like they're one player away tend to make these type of mistakes. You know what I mean? You pay Devontae Adams, but if you was to ask him in hindsight, if would you take that deal back? I kind of feel like even though he's a fan favorite and things like that, I think you could have did a lot more to build this football team up. And just a year later, you think we got the Derek Carr connection and all this going on, and then he's now out of town, and now we have nothing to hang our hat on as far as that go. But what I will say is, at least they're trying to undo some of those wrongdoings. You know what I mean? The Derek Carr contract, was it bad? Was it a mistake? But at least they trying to move on. They got rid of him, got him out of town. Darren Waller, I think that contract obviously was a mistake. They thought he would be one of the best players in his position for the foreseeable future. He didn't turn out that way. They move off of him and get Meyer. I thought that was a good deal as well. Renfro, terrible deal as well. So I don't blame them for being a little hesitant when it comes to giving out these contracts and how they're trying to deal with Jacobs right now. But as a team, are they really that far off? And how
Absolutely.
how close are they to a rebuild? But how far they really off, man? It's crazy because it's like this team right here is like one of the hardest teams to diagnose. You know what I mean? Right now, I don't really know if they terrible, are they good, are they bad? Like where are they? And I think that's up to Josh McDaniels and how these players respond to him going into the next year for sure.
To me, with the Raiders, man, I think they're terrible. Like top 5 pick potential. But Jimmy Garoppolo does win football games. So looking at it on paper, it looks terrible, but Jimmy makes things happen. There is a former chemistry. He's familiar with what's said to be a confusing Josh McDaniels
Mm.
offense. So I mean that could help them out a bit there, but defensively it's a mess, man. They need a linebacker and they need another corner, but at the same time I feel for them because they have lost all their first round draft picks or missed on them. So there is a big hole of talent on that team that trading for Devontae Adams didn't help fill, if that makes sense. Where do you think they actually wind up in the division? You think this is a 4 spot for sure?
I can't say, man, because it's easy to look at the record and in hindsight, and you just see wins and losses, man. But when you think about in context some of those stats and some of the way they lost some of those games, it's just crazy because they were up. They were up in a lot of games, man, and they should have won a lot of those games. It's just crazy. Like they just kept having those leads and losing them. And if I can recall, I think it was they had four double digit halftime leads and lost all of them this year. To go 0-4 in those games, I think that's like the first time that we've seen that since 1930. So we've never seen it in our lifetime in a season.
That's
And
embarrassing.
they done that. And then you combine that with the fact that you in 13 one score games that's decided by 8 points or less, and they only won 4 of those games, 4 out of 13. You combine that together, it goes to show you that like they had the leads, they lost them. And they was in a lot of these games that was close. And like you just talked about with the Broncos and the Vikings and so long, they was another team that kind of had the same thing. So they just got to figure out how to win, how to close these games. And you talk about that Josh McDaniels and getting the Jimmy Garoppolo in. Can he be the deciding factor and getting that done? Because I think one of the main reasons why they was so quick to move off of Derek Carr was you got to question yourself and thinking, like, did he really help that team as far as how Josh McDaniels wanted to run things?
Right.
When they were up, was he really following the playbook? Was he going through his reads? And just even though sometimes it doesn't need to show up in the stat sheet, sometimes it's the simple things like checking the ball down, throwing it out of bounds, moving on to the next play, doing those things to protect your defense, which we all know have holes. And I think, when Jared Stidham went in there, obviously they went against the number one defensive league in the San Francisco 49ers. He showed that he could run that offense. And look, they competed. The last game of the season, I believe it was the Chiefs. They didn't really compete, but Jared Stidham played well again. He was running. They just didn't have enough that game. And I think that was enough for Josh McDaniels to say, listen, I don't need all the arm talent in the world. I don't need, a guy stinging all the field. I just need somebody to come in here, do what I need him to do, run this offense. And I think they went and got a guy like that in Jimmy G. And maybe, just maybe, hey, Jimmy G wins some games for him, and they may be in the playoffs this year. Who knows?
I think it's really possible. One thing I do want to point out too that I think is actually kind of mind-boggling, but they did decline his fifth-year option last year. And in hindsight, looking at it now, you would have definitely picked up his fifth-year option. You should have, because he's still under contract, but he doesn't have to come play on the tag. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot there because they told him to prove it, and then he proved it. So it's like, I get where he's coming from. Unfortunately, I do think he's going to play on the tag this season, but we'll see what happens from there.
And you can't blame him for that. Jacobs, I love Jacobs to death, but as we all know, the running back market it's in shambles right now. And like, he led the league in rushing, but how much of that was because he was motivated to get this contract? And I can't blame either party. You know what I mean? Does he want to do it again without the insurance of having that in his pocket? I understand. And the Raiders, if y'all hesitant in giving this deal, I understand as well, man. A lot of things can go on in their franchise. I could easily see them falling short this year and having to restock the shelf, man. Just make a lot of moves, and if they win, maybe they push some more pieces to the board, and they're not far off as we think they are. So it's a weird team. But look, hey Raiders, look, don't count Jimmy G out too fast, too fast. Look, we don't know. We've seen it before, man. But it should be a fun division this year for sure.